The most audacious chapter in 1925's Mato Grosso began when Percy Fawcett set out to prove the impossible. A veteran cartographer and former British artillery officer, Percy Harrison Fawcett had spent decades mapping the Amazon for the Royal Geographical Society and arguing against the prevailing view that the rainforest was a timeless wilderness. He believed, on the basis of reports, earthen mounds and pottery he'd encountered, that the jungle hid the ruins of a sophisticated pre-Columbian city he called Z. By May 1925, Fawcett, 57, was restless and certain. He left the town of Cuiabá with supplies, a small party that included his son Jack and a young companion, and a map crammed with clues from Jesuit chronicles and indigenous testimonies. They pushed into the Mato Grosso scrub and rivers, following old trails, trading for food and information in villages that wavered between hospitality and fear. Fawcett's notes read like a manifesto. The Amazon had been altered by humans, cities had been swallowed by green, and history waited for him to piece it together. Within weeks, the narrative shifted from exploration to urgency. Fawcett's final letters home were terse, promising a return. Then silence. The last confirmed sighting of the party was in a remote riverine settlement. They vanished into a stretch of forest that few outsiders had traversed. When weeks stretched to months, the British press and the Royal Geographical Society demanded answers. What followed was an international scramble. Dozens of search parties, missionaries, fortune seekers, and frustrated officials converged on Mato Grosso. Men went in and never returned. Native testimony, hearsay, and broken camps produced fragments, a scrap of map, a boot, rumors of a decapitated European. But the truth eluded them. The disappearance spawned a web of competing explanations that hardened into conspiracy. One current held that Fawcett had indeed found Z, a literate, engineered civilization, and that governments or commercial interests conspired to conceal it, suppressing an upheaval of academic orthodoxy and the potential for claims on resources. Another version, more prosaic and supported by many eyewitness reports, was that Fawcett and his men were killed by indigenous groups defending their territory. Accounts later named tribes of the Upper Xingu and the neighboring forests as involved. Yet another suggested Fawcett, enchanted by what he found, abandoned the outside world and lived among a tribe. Historically verifiable threads separate truth from speculation. Fawcett was a respected member of the geographical community. He had conducted methodical surveys, published papers, and returned with mounds of ethnographic notes. The searches after 1925 are well documented. Explorers from Britain, Brazil, and the United States mounted expeditions. Local officials and missionaries compiled testimony. Records show that many searchers suffered illness or death, but no definitive archaeological city was produced by those efforts. The idea of a grand Greco-Roman style metropolis was never substantiated. The conspiracy that something big was hidden owes much to the era's imperial anxieties and the romantic hunger for lost civilizations. Later 20th and 21st century archaeology has, paradoxically, softened the argument. Researchers have demonstrated that the Amazon supported large, organized societies, engineered soils, terra preta, and earthworks, real achievements that vindicate Fawcett's core intuition without endorsing the myths that grew around his fate. What remains incontrovertible is drama, the obsessive courage of a man who read ruins where others saw wilderness, the terrible vanishing of a father and his son in the green silence, and the cascade of human lives touched by the search. The mystery never resolved, no fully authenticated remains, no recovered journals that prove a definitive ending, leaves Fawcett's story at once a true life adventure and a cautionary tale about the power of conviction in uncharted places. A century on, the Mato Grosso still keeps secrets. Modern explorers and archaeologists continue to find traces of complex pre-Columbian life across the Amazon, confirming that Fawcett was not entirely wrong. But the conspiracy endures because the human heart prefers a tidy answer, either a grand discovery buried by forces of power or a tragic, violent end. The reality is messier and more human. A man who loved maps enough to walk into the unknown